Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this evening's screening. I'm Piers Handling, Director and CEO of TIFF. My distinct pleasure to welcome you to this evening's screening of Faithless. And of course, we have a very, very special guest with us tonight. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that tonight's event is taking place on the treaty territory of the Mississaugas of New Credit and the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, and the Huron-Wendat. And we're very grateful to have the opportunity to work in the community. On behalf of TIFF, I'd like to thank our lead sponsor, Bell, our major sponsors, RBC, L'Oréal Paris, and Visa, our major public supporters, the Government of Ontario, Telefilm Canada, and the City of Toronto, and our Cinematheque supporters, Ontario Creates, and the Canada Council for the Arts. Also, a big thank you goes to our donors and members, people like you, for supporting our charitable mission of bringing the power of film to life 365 days a year. Now, tonight's event complements two series we're screening this season at TIFF. Liv Ullmann, Face to Face, which shows a selection of her work as both a writer and a director, and Bergman 100, the Ingmar Bergman Centenary, a celebration of the revered Swedish master that includes an expansive retrospective of his extraordinary work in both film and television. And tomorrow, Liv will join us in an intimate onstage conversation, and in conversation with, which begins at 8:30, and I have I'm the lucky person who's actually hosting this. And then she's going to be introducing a screening afterwards at 9 o'clock of Shame, one of the masterpieces that she worked in. So I hope that you can enjoy or join us at both these events, and of course the film screenings that we're going to be hosting over the course of the next 8 weeks or so. Now, Faithless, I won't do a long introduction because Liv's going to introduce it. It was the second of two films that she made from screenplays that had actually been written by Ingmar Bergman. And all I'll say is that the film was a very, very personal, or the story was a very, very personal one for Ingmar. So with no further delay, I will introduce somebody who I have such an extraordinary admiration for. Having rescreened so many of the films just for my in-conversation, I became aware of how extraordinary her performances were. And the films of Ingmar Bergman, just revisiting those was a distinct pleasure. Yes, she's, I think, one of the true icons of cinema, has had the most remarkable career as an actress, and we are so lucky to be able to welcome her here tonight at Cinematheque. Please join me in welcoming Liv Ullmann.
Hello, and I'm really very happy to be here. First of all, because I admire Piers a lot, and I'm so much older than him that I remember when he wasn't remembered the way he is now, having made Toronto the most important place on this part of the world, film festival, and for actors, directors, and not the least for the audience. I'm very, very happy that you asked me to come. And I'm happy for another reason also, because I spoke to my sister today, and that's why I have to mention it, because I was free in the day, and my sister reminded me, which of course I knew, that we were in Japan when I was born there, and just before the Second World War started, my father and my mother and my sister, we fled Japan and we came to Toronto. And I spent 3 years here as a little girl. And I've been walking around seeing, and I didn't have an address, I had nothing, but I thought maybe God will show me, so I'll have an extra memory of today. But God didn't show me anything, except that I am happy to be here. I feel at home here. I think Ingmar would have been incredibly proud to know what is happening all over the world. He always wanted to be seen as a writer, but he was so famous for the images, for his movies, for the fantasy, for everything. But he really wanted to be a writer. And now, when they are celebrating him all over the world, it's not only with his movies, It's very much the ballet, the theater, orchestra, Autumn Sonata movie I made with him. That is now an opera in 2 different countries, and everybody is translating his film work into another media, another art form. And it would have made him tremendously happy, because nobody really were talking about that the way they are doing it now. And that became my thing when I was to direct this movie, because he took such great pride in his words with every reason. And I knew as an actress that you never change a word of what he has written. You never. You can act against it, or you can, do whatever you want, because he believed that actors are very, very creative, and that's why he used them, and used the same ones that he knew about and what they would give. But now in this film, and I will mention it because it's interesting for you when you see it to know, this is not... I lived with Ingmar some years, and it is not our story. It happened many years before I met him. But I lived with him at the house he built after we did Persona together. And that's why I knew so much of what he was, where he was sitting when he wrote something, and what he was doing. And I used that very much in the movie. But there was one thing in his script I wanted so much to change, because sins are big in this world, and they can be small, and they can be something in the middle. For him, what he had done once with a woman he lived with, he could never forgive himself. And I do not understand why. And she actually forgave him, and so I phoned him and said, can you not put in a movie, where he's writing about this story, and can you not put something about forgiving yourself? And he said, no, I don't forgive myself for this. I don't forgive myself. But it is about you, I said. No, it's not about me. So why are you calling the writer Bergman? I couldn't think of another name, he said. And there is 2 Bergmans in the movie. It's the older one who sits and writes, and I filmed it in his office at Fårö, Gotland, which was his island and where he used to sit and write. I filmed it there. And the young man, who is also Bergman, him as a young person, he has a long monologue sitting in the script, sitting in front of a mirror and saying what a sinner I was, and so I don't remember the words now. But I fooled Ingmar in this, because instead of having that man sitting in front of a mirror, I took him into where old Ingmar, sitting at his work table writing the story, I took him in there. And there the young one sat and talked about his sin to the older one. And then in the end, the older one looks at the younger one, and he stretches out his hand, and he does this. And it's a beautiful, forgiving scene, but it's very important that you know about it, because I did it for Ingmar, so he would forgive himself. And he has never mentioned that scene to me, which means he liked it. What he did not like, and this is the last thing I will tell about the movie you are about to see, was I have him sitting at his writing table, and it's Ingmar's real writing table, and everything you see in his office, that is his office. It's not made in a studio. So I have him sitting there and writing, and he looks at his watch, and then he goes over to the window, and from that window you can see the beach of this island Fårö. And I remember seeing him walking on this beach back and forth, thinking about the new movie he may be making. And so in the movie, I show him going to the window, looking down at the beach. And then I cut over to the beach. And there on the beach is the old Bergman. Ingmar saw that, and we were going to Cannes with it. We were invited for the competition, and Ingmar said, that has to go out immediately. He does not see himself there on the beach. It's to be empty if you're going to show that at all. Well, it's my movie now. You do that, and I'm going to write Cannes and say I don't want the movie shown, and I'm against it. So he forced me to take that scene out. But this is the clue. After we had been in Cannes, he phoned me and said, Liv, I did a mistake. Put that scene in again. So that scene is in. But the real clue of this is he made a documentary about himself, which is a wonderful documentary, where he, of course, was the director and a wonderful cinematographer made it. And there in Ingmar's documentary, you see Ingmar, the old Ingmar, sitting at his writing table, writing, and then looking at his watch. And then he walks over to the window and looks out, cut to the beach. There walks Ingmar Bergman. I still don't know if that already had been in his mind or if he stole from me. I would have liked if he stole from me. I wish you really a good time. We have incredible actors here. Erland Josephson, who is no more with us. He plays old Ingmar, and Christian plays the young one, and Lena Endre, a genius of an actress, she plays the woman. Or is she a ghost? Or is she part of a dream? Or what is happening? What is happening? We don't know. He wrote it as a monologue. The actors made it alive. And she has a scene there. I'm just going to say that scene is one of the most incredible acting scenes I've ever seen. She is telling her daughter, I'm going to leave your father and I'm going to live by myself with another man. And she tells this to the old Bergman. And she is incredible. We see the little daughter, who's 7 years old. We see the little daughter leave the room. We see the little thin back of the daughter. And when she tells it, she was so fantastic that the whole crew made a big, big applause for her. It wasn't that it was not incredible, because it was a great acting thing. But I said to her, there is one thing which is in the script when you read it. It could have been you. You just divorced. Part of your life forever will be you telling a little child, I am leaving you for a long time and I'm going to live somewhere else without you. And your little daughter will go from you and she will walk through the room and go around the corner and disappear. And part of your memory always will be that little naked back leaving you. That's what you have to tell one more time. And you will see it, and she did it. And it's not an acting experience. It's what acting really is about, that you also put yourself into a character and make it so alive that people in the audience will recognize it. Because Ingmar Bergman didn't write for your mind. Ingmar Bergman wrote for your soul, about the existence behind the existence. So, have a good time. Thank you.